Okay, the lesson overview. Okay. Part one is going to be troubleshooting. We're going to talk about the negative energies that we have and how we are going to redirect them. There's so many reasons to be depressed, right? And we're going to try to attack each one and with the perspective that the Torah gives us. And then the next part is identifying with the soul. That's going to be a complete flip on the world perspective that we're used to. Most people look at life as an end in itself. Most people look at life as, you live only once. Right? And the Torah looks at it the other way. Really, you're passing through. Life was already, it already existed before you were born. Your own life existed before you were born, and it will continue after one dies. So we're going to explore that, and we're going to see how that ties into the subject of being joyful at all times. Okay, let's go to page 65. I'm going to ask people to read this time, because I don't like reading. I don't like speaking all the time. I think I gain, and everyone else gains when we participate. Okay, so on page 65. And I'd like to read
Is your glass half empty or half full? The answer lies in the perspective you choose to take. Because happiness is an action, not a reaction. It is state of mind, not a state of being. It lies not in your position, but in your disposition. In this lesson, you will learn how to keep life from getting you down and the secret to greeting each day with genuine joy and optimism.
Now, you are probably all thinking in the wake of last week, how could we study this subject and really apply it, and really believe it? How is it possible that we could always be in a state of joy? Now, the Torah doesn't say we should always be in a state of joy. There are times when it's appropriate to experience grief. And at those times, joy would be inappropriate. We're going to talk about what happened in Mumbai throughout the course, throughout this class in particular, because of, we're going to be dealing with that very subject, the subject of suffering, and how do we maintain a positive attitude in the face of that. So if you have any questions during the class, please feel free. I want this to be more of a give and take. Rabbi Alport's very good at giving lectures, and I'm not. I like to have roundtable discussions. So if people would like to, jump in, please do. Okay. First slide says, poised for success. How is it possible that an athlete with superior training can lose to an inferior opponent? Well, let's say someone was undoubtedly more, gifted athletically, and they were better trained. It's still possible they can lose. How could that be?
The race, they could trip and fall.
Okay, there could be an accident.
The effort, there was going to be a bigger effort.
Okay, so the weaker person could put a greater effort. One motivating factor.
They weren't motivated enough.
Right, or that person wasn't motivated enough. A very common depressant, if you will, is depression, sadness. Something that often holds a person back is feelings of being weighed down, and that's why we use that term. Imagine, next slide please.
Sure.
Just keep clicking. Okay, so imagine you have two boxers, or two wrestlers, or two athletes. The one who's upbeat is going to beat the one who's down. It doesn't matter. The training is less important than the inner vitality, the enthusiasm that's involved. Right? And that's true of any endeavor. Whatever you try to do, it needs to be done with joy and with enthusiasm. Otherwise, you're not going to succeed. So this alone is a tactical reason for having joy in the service of God, because it becomes impossible after a while. You don't want to do it anymore. Not because mitzvahs are wrong, it's right. Not because there aren't other reasons to do it, but just because I'm just not in the mood. It's too hard. It's too hard for that. Now let's take a look at text number 1. Or would you read first? Okay. Rebecca, would you read first?
But this is a cardinal principle, that with a victory over a physical opponent, for instance, two people who wrestle each other, each striving to fell the other, if one of them is lazy and sluggish, he will easily be defeated and will fall, even if he is stronger than the other. Similarly, with the conquest of one's evil nature, it is impossible to conquer it with laziness and sluggishness, but rather with exuberance which derives from joy, and an open heart that is unblemished by any trace of worry and sadness in the world.
Okay. It seems like a tall order. I'd say the average person gets out of bed already worrying. You know, you look at the alarm clock and you're just, that snooze button is already wearing on because you hit it so many times. And we try to escape, you know, our troubles. So we try to fight them initially. If we can't fight them, we try to escape them. If we can't escape them, we resign ourselves to them. You know, and the psychologists in the crowd could tell us the phases of after it works, anger and then finally acceptance, right? But what is the best way to deal with a given situation, a challenge that you need to overcome now because the situation calls for action, meaning service of Hashem. You know, you could wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to daven today. It happens to everybody. I don't want to do this mitzvah today. I don't want to go to shul on Shabbos. It happens. So let's go to slide number 4. So the question we have to address again is it possible to be joyful and upbeat? I'd say that the first 3 lessons we covered was more about self-control. It was about learning, what am I capable of? Am I always a victim to my circumstances or my inner circumstances? Am I a slave to myself? Or can I master myself? And so unequivocally we showed in the last few weeks that you can master yourself. Now we have to understand how to do it with a smile. Okay? So let's see next slide. Okay. One of the most important and fundamental principles. It doesn't mention it here on the slide. I'm going to point out. It says there's the concept of hashgacha pratis, of divine providence. We saw it in the video. The Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov emphasized this idea that every single thing happens for a reason. There is nothing that happens arbitrarily or haphazardly or accidentally. As we saw in the video, even the way the leaf blows off the tree and turns in the wind, it's being guided by Hashem and has a purpose. And somehow it's fulfilling the cosmic goal that God has in mind. So that's number 1, that God guides every single event. And number 2 is this teva hatov laheitiv, which means the nature of the good one is to be good. When Hashem does what He does, it's always for the good. Do we always see it? We don't always see it. And this is where it gets very problematic. We'll talk about that very soon. But the last part of this slide, Ein ra yered min hashamayim, that no evil comes down